What if I told you that you've never heard of the biggest whiskey failure ever? We've been talking about wildly successful whiskeys recently, but this thing tanked a national industry. And if you want to know what it's like to pour $100 million into a glass and still end up with something that nobody drinks twice, this is it. We're talking greed, scandals, jail time, 500 trained parrots, and whiskey so bad they accidentally became collectibles. These are the biggest whiskey fails of all time, starting now. We're gonna start with the modern mess. Virginia Black, the bourbon-based whiskey brainchild of rapper Drake and spirits entrepreneur Brent Hawking, launched in 2016 with one of the most hyped campaigns in recent memory. Billboards, glitzy parties, sexy commercials. There were even plans for a $30 million IPO. But fast forward a few years and what happened? Let's start with the liquid. The reviews were not great. Second problem, the price. People started realizing that they could get more character, more age, more story for less money from dozens of other bourbons. Third, Drake disappeared. After the launch wave, he kind of ghosted the brand. There was no follow-up, no innovation, no second act. His name was on the bottle, but it felt more like a licensing deal than a passion project. And by 2022, one consumer survey ranked it the worst value celebrity liquor on the market. That's like winning the thickest neck beard on Reddit. The competition is stiff, and the prize is not worth it. The next one was J&B -6°C. Now we're in the land of clear whiskey. In 2006, Diageo decided to roll out J&B -6. It's a Scotch whiskey filtered so aggressively that it was nearly colorless. The -6°C part was referring to the chill filtration temperature. They made it a big deal with the cold filtration. It was somehow revolutionary. And this wasn't even new whiskey. It was just their regular blend, filtered to death and stripped of flavor and color so it could pretend to be vodka. The pitch, well, this was the whiskey for people who don't like whiskey. People who wanted to order a scotch and soda but didn't want any of that pesky scotch part getting in the way. Bartenders were baffled, drinkers were confused, even vodka drinkers didn't care. No one walks into a bar and says, "I'll take the scotch, but make it less scotch." Or, "Let's watch an F1 race, but can you slow down the cars? It's a bit much." Oh, people love dogs, right? But that fur they shed, we should definitely start shaving the dogs. The only thing remarkable about JB -6°C is how fast it disappeared. Look, they said the internet never forgets. I had a hard time finding stuff about this whiskey. It hit the market, sat on shelves, and vanished inside of a year. So lesson for the boardrooms out there, if your best idea is to make it taste like nothing, maybe don't. Or remember that vodka already exists. The Hillhaven Lodge, launched in 2016, this was a Diageo-backed American whiskey with red carpets, designer labels, and unfortunately a front man who would go down in flames. Blended from bourbon, rye, and Tennessee whiskey aged across 3 decades. The concept's pretty cool. Interesting blend. A luxury whiskey inspired by real-life Beverly Hills party mansion, owned by Hollywood director Brett Ratner. At first, it looked like a slam dunk. The bottle was sleek, the branding was moody and cinematic. They even won gold at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition. Momentum was real. Ratner was doing interviews, hanging out at launch parties, and dropping the whole "this whiskey tells a story" thing. Less than 2 years after launch, Brett Ratner became an early cautionary tale in the Me Too movement. The official word? Due to the nature of these allegations, the Hillhaven Lodge whiskey has been discontinued. Now, I'll say this. It was a unique blend, aged and layered. It had a chance, but if you're gonna tie your whiskey to a famous name, make damn sure that name isn't going to explode on Twitter and implode on the front page of Variety. Anyone else feel like Subway for lunch? Weird craving. Today's video is sponsored by Element. LMNT Element, because hydration isn't just about water, it's sodium, potassium, and magnesium. But most of us walk around low on salt because an old government guideline told us that sodium was the enemy. Element flips that script. Backed by real science, their formula dials you in with exactly what your body's missing. No sugar, no garbage, just electrolytes that actually work for good hydration when you're active, sweating, fasting, drinking. And it helps that this tastes really good. My favorite is the watermelon. But don't forget they also have lemonade salt. It's limited edition for the summer. It's very good. Joe saw me walking around with this and mentioned that he and his crew have gone through more than a dozen cases of Element already. They had no idea they were a sponsor. Make sure you check out Element, go to drinkelementing.com/whiskeytribe to get a free sample pack with any order. It includes their most popular flavors, 2 sticks each. If you don't like it, give it to a salty friend, and Element will give you your money back. No questions asked. Stay salty. All right, this one's interesting. Loch Dew, the black whiskey. Released in the mid-90s by Mattockmore Distillery under United Distillers, which would eventually become Diageo. Loch Dew means Black Lake in Gaelic, and this stuff lived up to the name. It was inky, oily, darker than Guinness left in the sun. Some of the color may have come from heavy char barrels, the rest, E150A caramel coloring. A lot of it. The result was the gothiest whiskey ever bottled. It's like someone in a boardroom said, hey, you know that artificial coloring that people begrudgingly tolerate in Scotch? Yeah, let's see if we can just twist that tolerance into curiosity. So yeah, it was a gimmick, a standout on the shelf kind of play. It sold at first. People were curious. They bought it. It looked badass. The bottle screamed, you're not like the other drinkers, and it promised deep, dark, complex flavors. Then they tasted it. Yeah. Loch Dew became legendary for not its uniqueness, but for its awfulness. Reviews at the time were scathing, bitter, burnt, acrid, like someone made tea with barbecued charcoal or distilled despair. Now, to be fair, taste can be very subjective. Some people defended it, some even liked it, but some people also like to lick batteries for fun. Diageo quietly pulled the plug. Little plot twist. Loch Dew, so weird, so unlike anything else, it became a collectible. You can still find bottles online selling for hundreds of dollars, mostly as conversation pieces or dares, like the Malort of Scotch. This is the one that I would love to try. I'm so curious to have that much repulsion, but then some people like it. It sounds like a funky adventure I want to get into. Okay, next up, Mortlach, the luxury rebrand. This one's a masterclass on how to overplay your hand. It had a cult following for rich, meaty, sherry-forward single malts. It was a hidden gem. So naturally, Diageo tried to turn it into the next Macallan. And in 2014, they launched a full-blown luxury rebrand, new bottle, new labels, fancy packaging. Except the bottles, they were 500 milliliters. Not 750, not 700, half a liter for 2 to 3 times higher than before. But at those prices, people wanted magic. And instead, they got a rebrand with the stench of boardroom cologne. Sales were weak. Retailers started discounting just to get it off the shelves. Mortlach had gone from a cult hero to a cautionary tale. You can't just slap a suit on a street brawler and expect him to host the Oscars. Mortlach tried to reinvent itself with a whisper campaign and a rented tuxedo that just didn't fit. The next big fail, Hague Club. Imagine this. You're a global spirits giant. You've got warehouses full of grain whiskey. It's cheap to make, ages quickly, and you're itching to sell it at a premium. So what do? If you're Diageo in 2014, you team up with David Beckham, wrap it in a big designer cologne bottle, and launch it like it's the second coming of Scotch. That's Hague Club, a single grain Scotch whiskey dressed up like it's walked off a fashion runway. Slick ads, celebrity power, and marketing so thick you'd think they were launching a Marvel movie. And to be fair, it worked at first. Sales spiked, curiosity was very high. Beckham's face was everywhere. Bars stocked it because they were told to. It had presence, but then people actually tasted it. The liquid inside couldn't carry the hype. Whiskey drinkers were looking for character, depth, something that justified the premium price tag, and what they got was an ultra-light grain whiskey that felt designed not to offend anyone. I do remember trying this once. I did not need to try it again. Why is this such a big flop? Because Diageo spent a mountain of cash to launch it. This wasn't a little experiment. This was a full-blown, globally marketed brand extension, and it fizzled. The bottle probably cost more than the whiskey. They bet big on image over substance, and they lost. And if you want to know what it's like to pour $100 million into a glass and still end up with something nobody drinks twice, this is it. Okay, the big one, the biggest failure of all time. Buckle up. Bet you've never heard of this one. The Pattersons whiskey crash, the original gangster of whiskey disasters. Back in the late 1800s, whiskey was booming. And 2 brothers, Robert and Walter Patterson, decided that they were going to ride that wave to the top. They launched Pattersons Limited, a blended Scotch company based in Edinburgh. They didn't just play the game, they bought the damn board. They threw money at everything, giant marketing stunts, fancy offices, and the most ridiculous one, they gave away 500 trained parrots that shouted, "Buy Patterson's whiskey." At their peak, they were whiskey royalty. They bought up shares in distilleries like Glenfarclas and Oban. They were the face of the Scotch boom. Investors couldn't throw money at them fast enough, but underneath all that glitz, pure fiction. The Pattersons were cooking the books big time. They overvalued the stock, paid dividends out of capital, used shady accounting and fake profitability. They were literally buying their own whiskey at inflated prices to create the illusion of sales long before Charles Ponzi was scheming. They used fresh investor cash to maintain the illusion of growth, paid unearned dividends, and kept the machine going on hype, not revenue. This was the proto-Ponzi scheme. In 1898, the bubble popped. Their share price collapsed overnight. The bank cut off the credit within days. Pattersons Limited imploded. And they didn't just take themselves down. Their collapse triggered a catastrophic chain reaction across the entire Scotch industry. At least 9 other whiskey businesses failed. Prices plummeted, construction halted, distilleries shut down. One historian said the industry was set back 50 years. That's like shitting your pants so bad. They don't just clear the room. They evacuate the whole damn neighborhood and burn it to the ground. Robert Patterson was sentenced to 18 months in prison. Walter got 9 months. So why is this the biggest flop in history? Because it did the most damage. It didn't just waste money, it wrecked the national industry. It was a fraud disguised as genius, hype without substance. And yeah, it happened over 100 years ago, but its fingerprints are still on the industry today. So if you ever feel like a brand overhyped their bottle, just remember, at least they didn't give out parrots and crash the economy. Pattersons, the gold medalist in whiskey failure. What do we take away from all this? First, whiskey is emotional. People don't just buy it, they believe in it. You mess with a beloved brand, you better have a damn good reason. And you better not lie. Second, gimmicks can grab attention, but they don't last. Whether it's turning whiskey clear, painting it black, or slapping on a celebrity, if the whiskey doesn't deliver, the whole thing crumples. Third, and maybe the most importantly, this stuff matters. Not just because of the dollars burned, but because of what it reveals. Whiskey is built on trust and patience and passion, and every time somebody tries to shortcut that, whether it's through hype, deception, or a parrot, something is gonna break. And if you've got your own favorite flop that we didn't mention, drop it in the comments. Maybe we'll do a part 2. Until then, drink with magnificence and never trust a whiskey that chases vodka. Cheers.